Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Tim.
Hello. Surprise.
Surprise, yes. This is a horror movie podcast. Every week we get together, we talk about horror movies, we go see a movie, and we come back and we discuss it, usually quite in-depth. Of course, we have a big release this week, The Invisible Man from Blumhouse, Leigh Whannell's new film as a director. Definitely his biggest film as a director. Obviously did Insidious 3, he did Upgrade, and then he did this. And this is kind of his biggest, highest profile movie where they're really marketing this, they're really putting it out there. Elisabeth Moss, of course, stars in it. We've been kind of excited about this one for a while because it sounded like such a cool new version of The Invisible Man. The idea of a woman who is stalked by her believed to be deceased abusive ex-boyfriend, and he's invisible, so he's able to torment her and make her look crazy and make her think she's going crazy and all these things. So that is the general premise of The Invisible Man. Of course, we will start spoiler free. We'll give you warning before we go into spoilers. And for the people watching the video, we should probably become invisible again, just because this will be really awkward if we stay like this the whole time. So just, oh, here we're here. We're here. So magic. So yeah. So that was the gist of the film. Tim, what did you think of The Invisible Man?
Well, first of all, I gotta say, I don't know if you know what this is, but I saw this in IMAX. Which,
what do you mean? I don't know if you know what that's. Tim, I am familiar with the IMAX. Yes.
Okay, and I gotta say, it's a little loud. I think I like how big the screen is, but I think they should need to turn the volume down a little bit when you go into the IMAX.
I love that you were trying to crack a joke that I had never heard of an IMAX, only to turn into an old man and be like, it's a bit too loud for my liking. The IMAX is too loud.
The movie wasn't too bad. It was like for some reason the trailers sounded really high up there. So that ruined my experience a little bit. But other than that, though, I gotta say, I kind of love this movie. It was I thought it was great. It's a very interesting, cool, unique take on The Invisible Man. I don't know if do you consider this like a reboot of the original movie? Because to me it doesn't really it doesn't really feel like it has too much in common with what I think of as the universal Invisible Man monster.
It's
not to say that it's bad. I think this is an awesome version, but I just feel like it's kind of its own thing,
No, it very much is its own thing. It's a weird comparison because they're using the name, obviously, right? They wanted to use the name. There's definitely a couple of little callbacks to it in this. There's a little homage here or there to the original Invisible Man. But they're very different movies. The original Invisible Man is kind of a horror comedy where the Invisible Man himself is the main character, and it's kind of him going kind of insane and cracking jokes and being a menace, and it's more hijinks, right? Whereas this movie's no, the Invisible Man is this silent stalker who's might just be always there, and you don't know if he's there or not. Yeah. And it's it's meant to be scary, and what is it exactly? I think what makes this movie work, because I like this movie as well, right? And I think what makes this work, and you're not sitting there going, I can't believe they're using the title and getting away with this and doing this weird new take where it's this instead of what it was. The idea for this movie is so it just makes so much sense to the point where you're why did no one think of doing this 20 years ago or 30 years ago? It feels like this is the obvious place to take it, and if anything, it almost feels like the original Invisible Man is the one that feels like it should be the jokey one that we do now, is kind of almost a not a satire, but okay, we've done serious movies of this now, let's do this jokey version where it's all more about the hijinks. It's kind of funny in a weird way that we got that version first, and this came much later. This came almost 80 years later. So that's interesting to me. Do I consider it a reboot? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess I consider this in the same way that I consider any new
Dracula
or werewolf movie to those Universal monster movies. Some of them are very similar to those same ideas, but sometimes they're not. I mean, not even Dracula. I mean, I'd probably go further and say vampire movie. This is like, I don't know, near dark, or A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night to Dracula. Right?
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe it's a weird way to start the discussion, but it's just something I was thinking of because I feel like, people were talking about that before, like, oh, like all the other Universal monster reboots have failed, but Leigh Whannell, has got his take, and yeah, so I don't know. It's it just seems like such a kind of a weird comparison. But that being said, though, I absolutely love the movie.
Yeah, so I guess I'd say it's a new entry in the invisible person subgenre as opposed to a remake or whatever of classic Invisible Man.
You got the original Invisible Man, and then of course Invisible Maniac, and then now this one.
The best Invisible movie of all, Invisible Maniac.
What I love about this is like it's I think I mentioned this with the trailer. What really sells it is like it's about something. Like it's not just there's more to it. I think like a lot of the movies that we've seen over the last couple of years that we really like, there's nothing wrong with just having kind of like a cool horror, surface level horror movie, but there's something else here where it does feel very timely. Dealing with a woman, kind of suffering from abuse and dealing with trauma, and getting over that, and kind of having all this stuff that happening to her. People don't believe her, like. There's all this kind of social commentary that can go with that, alongside just really, cool movie stuff. Like, I think the cinematography is great. The performances are great. I like that it feels very minimalist. Like, I'm really impressed with how tense Whannell was able to make just a camera shot of just like a blank hallway. Like there's so many scenes where the camera will just pan over and you see nothing.
Well, it's kind of the joke with making a movie about an invisible person, right? Where it can just feel kind of goofy because there's moments where like I won't get too spoilery here, but there's moments in any movie like this where you've got a character who's interacting with the invisible person, and usually they'll be struggling or something like that, and that can feel kind of silly. You can almost see William Shatner going like
yeah,
like pretending that he's being strangled or whatever, and like that can feel goofy. So obviously, first of all, you have Elisabeth Moss, who's a good actress, and that's a big reason why this works. But I think the reason why the cinematography works and doesn't feel goofy when it's doing things like that is simple little things like it won't just cut to a shot of an empty hallway, right? It'll pan over to a shot of a hallway from wherever the main characters are, and then it'll pan back to them, and it'll be like, hey, he might be there. Like, we're kind of telling you that there's something there. And I think that's where it kind of works, and that's why it feels kind of tense. And the pacing is just right. You have to pace it appropriately. You have to make it feel like we're going over and looking at something. So even though we can't see anything in the hallway, we have to feel like any other shot in a movie, we're focusing on the thing that would be over there for the right amount of time and then coming back, even though there's nothing actually there.
Definitely. And I feel like if this was maybe like a bigger budget movie or something, like you'd probably have some bullshit like CG, like kind of Predator vision effect or something, where you still kind of see like an outline. Like I'm really glad that they didn't do that, because I just love the just complete emptiness of some of those shots. And and it's not to say that like everything is like that. Like they are lots more like creative things that they do with it other than that, but it's a really good build up to like starting out with some of that kind of stuff and then just leading to bigger and more interesting things that they do with it. I dig that stuff. One of my things that I love in horror movies, especially when it comes to supernatural things, not that it's supernatural in this case, but it kind of falls into the same blanket, is the idea of like, okay, once we establish the threat and what the thing is, like how the main character or characters then decide to try and like
okay, now we know this is a thing, how do we fight back? And it's something as simple as like, okay, if I can't see the person, how can I try and turn that against them, or turn or whatever, right? So in the case of this one, the first thing that happens, which I don't think is too split to say, is that she throws like some like coffee beans all over the ground so that if he walks towards her, there'll be some footprints and she can see him coming. And that's the moment in a movie like this where I start to go, oh yes, start to fight back, start to think outside the box and think about how you can fight this, because that's what gets really interesting to me in movies like this, is like, anything like, Dream Warriors, for example, Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Why I love that one probably even more in the first movie in the series is because it's about the characters saying, okay, how do we fight back? How do we actually take the rules that they've established? Because one of the things that should be a case in this movie, and for the most part it sticks to it, there's maybe some slight things I can maybe like nitpick at later, but but for the most part, this is just a human being who's walking around, right? It's not like he's invisible, but he's walking around, so he has the same weaknesses theoretically as any human does. You just have to know where he is to do it. So the challenge is in finding him, the challenge is in seeing him. Now, admittedly, that's maybe a little bit of stretching your disbelief a touch when it comes to like the fact that he seems to almost never make any noises. Like he's very quiet on his feet. So you kind of roll with that because it makes the movie work, and you just kind of accept it. But that's what it is.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, I wouldn't say it's like a flawless movie. Like, there is some logic stuff that if you think about, like, all right, well, wait, how do they get to this place so fast and blah, 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 whatever. But again, it's one of those movies, though, where you can easily let that stuff go because I think everything else surrounding it is so good.
I think
that, any minor quips are just very much like forgettable.
One of the things that I think it needed to do for me, and it kind of does, is the escalation of what the Invisible Man does to her, and like how how nasty he can really be if he wants to, because no one can see what he's doing, and they really sort of nailed that. There's a big turning point about maybe 2/3 through the movie. It was a really well done scene. It was really shocking. It kind of like, of course, like I'm glad it went there, because it would have felt like it was holding back too much if it didn't. And
I think I know which scene you're talking about, and I'll say. Actually, a couple of points in the movies, I was like generally surprised, like at the places they go or some of the things they do. Like,
and the movies, the movie starts off really strong as well. Like,
I love the opening sequence.
Yeah, because the opening of the movie, first of all, the opening titles, they do this thing where it's like water crashing against rocks, beside the cliff, and when the water splashes up, it's like it's hitting invisible credits, and it's like dripping off, and you see them for just a second, then they go away.
It's really cool.
Very fun, very very flashy, but it's as far as gimmicky credits go, these ones are pretty cool. But it starts off with her lying in bed next to her boyfriend, and this is her escape from his, because he's a rich guy, he's like a millionaire.
One thing I was curious about, I don't know if they say exactly in the movie, but were they just boyfriend and girlfriend, or were they married?
Just boyfriend girlfriend. They were never married.
Okay.
Because at no point in the movie did they ever mention a divorce or her. Like the word husband or wife is never used, so they weren't at that point.
Okay.
But and we see her lying there, kind of creeped out. And what's really smart about this opening is that there's almost no dialogue of any kind for almost the entirety of it. And what's so beautiful about film as a visual medium is that it always feels more engaging when you get things from context rather than it just being spoon fed to you. So seeing her sneak around the bed and seeing her trying to because it's like a prison escape. She's got like stuff planted around the house. She's got like a plan. She has to do all these various steps to get away. She's drugged him so that he's still asleep, hopefully, and it sets up all these things. Now I will critique it. There's one little thing that it set up that I thought they could have used a little bit more. There's a moment where before she leaves, she turns one of the security cameras to look at the bed, so she can check if he's still there on her phone. And I thought that was going to be like a device that they use, where she uses that and keeps looking, and then he would be gone in one shot. And they never did. They actually never used it for anything, which I thought was weird. But minor quibble.
But I wonder though if part of it was maybe expectations, because you kind of keep expecting him to wake up or something at any moment. But
well, that's fair. But they never even that'd be fine if it didn't do that thing I just said. But they never even have her look at it and check it every once in a while.
That's true. Yeah.
There's no use of it at all after that. So
yeah. But I absolutely love this though. It's so tense, and before we even know anything about this person or about the invisibility stuff that comes in later, it sets him up as such a threat.
Yeah, well, that's what I like about it is like the way she's sneaking around and the way she's terrified of him waking up. It tells us everything we need to know about who he is. It tells us everything we need to know about this going in.
Yeah, like I'm really glad that actually, like, you know, they really never go into detail about exactly like what it, like, you know, they mention like kind of like some like stuff about it, but you know, they never actually say like, oh, he did this to me, he did that to me. It's like you said, like we get everything we need to know from like all these context clues, and you can just tell like, oh yeah, he's a piece of shit, he's a very bad person.
Yeah, and I also love that in this opening you never see his face. At least not until the very end. Like it kind of hides his face, and it's almost like it's trying to make a point of saying this is like he just kind of represents all bad guys, right? This is you know, it's not a woman who's trying to escape this abusive relationship, and he represents just kind of everyone. Now, of course, that goes away by the end of the movie because we have to introduce him a little bit more and so on. But like I really dug that element of it, and all this just felt really tense. It worked really well. And the movie goes from there, and it's it's about this like her trying to get over this abuse, but of course he seemingly has faked his death and starts coming after as an invisible person, and obviously we'll leave the plot there and we'll talk a bit more spoilers, but I think all of that opening is really effective, and all of it tells you exactly what you need to know about him before we even start, and it does it in a way where we're kind of putting the pieces together, and it's told through the actions and through the visuals rather than here's a list of things that he's done. And we kind of get like a scene kind of like that where she tells because she's living with this friend of her sister's, this cop named James, and his daughter, and she's kind of telling him and her sister Emily, she's telling them kind of not fully, some stuff, kind of giving a vague sense of what he was like.
But and again though, it's like it's all you need. Like I like that they don't go into specifics. Like he was like, oh, he would do this to me. It is just more like, talking about how controlling he is and like how you can't get on his bad side and stuff. And like you said, it really just kind of sets up like, all right, yeah, we know who he is from this.
Yeah, because there's a moment where if he didn't like what I was thinking, because he should say, oh, he would just assume I was thinking things, and if he didn't like what he assumed I was thinking, and she kind of pauses, and James says, "Would he hit you?" You're kind of concerned, and her response was, among other things, which really sort of just puts the bar of like how dark it might have got up there. So,
and I like how it's like a setup to. Like basically throughout like the whole movie, how they're kind of having like a cat and mouse game, because like he knows like what the kind of stuff that she's gonna think or where she's gonna go or want to do. So it gives him like a lot of stuff that he can kind of use to like set these kind of traps or baits, or he knows like the best ways to make her look crazy.
And I will say this as well, I think the movie's paced in terms of escalation very well, because I think any time where I was almost a bit ready to think, okay, I'm kind of tired of this portion of the movie where like, okay, so she's seeing like the odd weird thing happen, I'm kind of like, I'm almost at the point now where this is maybe lasting too long. It just at the right possible moment, it would escalate to the next part where, okay, now she is convinced he exists and it's him and he's around, and then just at the right possible moment, things would get crazier where he was, because for a long time like he's being intentionally secretive, he doesn't want her to really know that he's there, but just at the right moment it's like, okay, the facade of this isn't maybe or maybe isn't happening goes away. Like that just happens at the right point where all of a sudden, okay, now we're in the next part of the movie where the characters, at least she knows this amount, and so on and so on. So it kept changing itself at the right moment, so it wasn't just dragging out the one sustained like idea. It was like always moving on to the new thing, but not too quickly as well, because I actually really appreciated there's a whole section in the middle where after some big stuff's happened, she's alone in the house for a while, and I appreciated like that section's like 20 minutes long of her just in the house alone trying to like figure things out, and I appreciated just how long it felt like that lasted, because I felt like it really devoted the time to it. Didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel like they just sort of give you a quick jump scare and moved it on. It was like no, we're going to really milk this just right.
Yeah.
So
no. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And then, I'm glad, like I thought that there might be like an angle or something where, she would think like it was a ghost or something, like, and I like that they don't really go there, like, pretty quickly. She's like, oh no, he's invisible. And, kind of similar to, like we were saying before about how they establish him being a threat, like with, without, going like too in depth and stuff. I like that, they don't really go into like a big thing about like explaining how the suit works or show him and like in his shop making the suit. Like, again, they just give you these context clues. Like, you see he has this kind of advanced like research when she's sneaking out of the house. And then, she mentions like, he was a leader in, his optics research and stuff. So
yeah,
like
they leave it vague.
It doesn't focus on the like how that would really work.
Yeah, they leave it vague enough, and they just sort of go. It is interesting though that it's a technology thing this time, as opposed to, like chemicals and science.
Yeah.
that, I mean, it's still science, but like very, very different to the previous versions of Invisible Man. Yeah. So I think we will go into spoilers now. So I think we'll take this time. I'll thank our patron producers for the month. So thank you to David Short, Alison and Fordyce, Cindy Palacios, Tyler Hess, and Talking Superman. That means they're all patrons at a $20 or above tier. But you can, of course, support us in everything we do and keep all the content coming for as little as $1 per month over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. And for that $1, you'll get a bonus exclusive episode of streams every month. There's about 15 now in the back catalogue. Most recent episode was Tourist Trap, kind of starting, because we had a vote in October for what our next season would be, and that the winner was slasher movies. And we knew that we wouldn't really start slasher season until probably April, because it would be after all the 2019 catch-up was done. But the first kind of entry in that, unless you count Jason X, but we're going to do that anyway because it was part of the franchise we were doing. But so that's kind of the start of that trickling out. And over the summer, we're hoping to do a lot of slasher stuff, and then of course into October, where the Octoberthon will happen. So go have a look. $5 tier, of course, gets you early access to all movie review episodes of Screams After Midnight by one day. So that's the new way we do things now. So Invisible Man, for example, this is going up Sunday night on Patreon, and it will be up Monday for everyone else. So go and check out patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. All right, so full spoilers then for The Invisible Man. So So yeah, obviously there's just some stuff early on where you're kind of seeing like oh, maybe this, because I actually loved after she first suspects that there's something creepy happening, right? And there's maybe like a moment where, because she's sharing a bed with the teenage daughter of James's daughter, Sydney. So she's sharing a bed with her, and like the Invisible Man like pulls the sheet off them in the middle of the night, and she gets up. And the two things that happen, I don't remember the order of these events, but the two things that happen here that I really liked, where one, she goes to pull the sheet, and like he's standing on the end of it, and he kind of starts walking up it, and it's kind of like flattening as it goes. And I thought, okay, really cool visual, really creepy. But the other one that I loved that was really simple is when he's just sitting in the chair, and you can kind of see the indent in the soft cushion of the chair. And what I liked about that is that it's such a normal, simple thing, but at the same time, it looks kind of weird, because as much as that happens every time we sit in a chair, because it only happens when someone's sitting in the chair, you never see it without the person being, like you never see just the indent itself. Right. And I thought that was a really interesting visual. And of course, there's a homage to the original here. When she wakes up, Sydney, the daughter, has a mannequin with a hat on it, and it looks like the classic Invisible Man with the hat on. And I thought that was cool. I thought that was a neat touch. So those are kind of the first creepy things that happen. I think there's also, it turns up the flame on the stove at one point as well around this part of the movie.
When she's making breakfast and she kind of leaves for a bit, and then he turns it up so a fire starts, and then which I think which serves a purpose actually, because it establishes they have a fire extinguisher in the kitchen.
So serves a plot
Actually,
purpose.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then, yeah, I think, and before that blanket scene, I'm not sure if we get the scene where she goes outside and you see the breath come out. Or...
Yeah, the order of some of this stuff's a little bit fuzzy. Like, it's all around this section of the movie, but yeah, you see the breath behind her. Which was in the trailer. I remember that being in the trailer.
Yeah.
Which is cool. So we should mention actually kind of what she's doing and where she is. Like we cut. It's like 3 weeks later after she's escaped. And she's staying at this guy's house, this James's house, and he's being really sort of like caring about her feelings and try to encourage her to go out and get the mail from the mailbox because she's too scared to go outside because he might show up. Adrian might show up. This is before she knows he's told that he's dead.
Yeah,
and
one of the reasons why she's staying like with this person is because she knows if she went to her sister that he would know where that is and stuff. So she's trying to stay with someone that he wouldn't think of. She
gets mad at her sister when she shows up. It's like, you weren't supposed to come here. He knows where you live. He can follow you. He can follow you here. So because there's a moment where she goes out to the mailbox and this guy's just jogging and she gets scared of this guy just jogging thinking it's him and she runs back in. But this is just to set up like how scared she is. This is her post escape and she's terrified of everything. She's like covering the camera on her webcam. The camera on her webcam, the webcam on her laptop, she's covering because she doesn't want to be spied on. Which I like that they brought that up because that is a concern. And obviously, I don't cover my webcam, but it's something that I do. Just because people can hack your webcam, it is totally a thing that happens. I always point my camera to the ceiling, just if anyone hacks in, enjoy the view of the plain white ceiling.
My wife puts like a Band-Aid over it.
Yeah, people do that. I get it,
but yeah, I think it's interesting because I feel like we don't kind of see this in movies a lot, where you're seeing the victim like how she's affected with this even after seemingly she's escaped and she should be free and happy and everything, but no, it's still like every day is still like torture because you're just so paranoid that this person's going to come back.
Yeah, and if you go to that phrase you love for the news episode, social horror, like I think that's kind of the big point here, is that it's not just the actual relationship itself, it's just how terrified the person can be afterwards. It's the lasting trauma of that experience and how it kind of messes a person up for however long. So that stuff is really cool and really well handled. So I dug all that. She finds out, of course, that he's dead. He's committed suicide. And she goes, and it's actually Adrian, who's the Invisible Man. His brother, Tom, is like his lawyer. So they go to him and he's like, okay, he's left you $5 million to be paid out in these increments over however many years. And you just have to like sign this and yada, yada, yada. He's not a very pleasant dude, but... and he kind of seems to think that she's just a gold digger and it is what it is. But
I think maybe this is why I was wondering if they were like married or not. Like, I mean, I guess, you can put anyone in your will, I guess, to, receive the funds or whatever. But
well, I think for me, this is why it confirmed for me they weren't married, because it was the way that she was surprised she was getting something. This was a choice that he made, rather than just automatic, you get everything because you're his wife.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Actually, just to go back to the technology stuff in the webcams, because obviously it's a technological suit. I do kind of love that this movie is set in present day and it uses technology in a way that feels believable and integrated into the world, but it doesn't. But it doesn't overdo it. It's like I feel like some movies are like, oh, we have to like use the internet and webcams and we have to do all these things like constantly. Like I love that the webcam never actually plays into the movie. It's just a concern she has. Later on she uses a Lyft at one point to get a taxi, a cab, like, and it's one of those things where it took me a second to go like, how did that car show up? It's like, oh, she was on her phone for a second there. She was just clearly using an app to get a car. I'm like, that makes sense. Like it uses it in ways that feel natural, that don't feel like, hey, look at all the technology we've got now. Look at all these things. It felt natural because. Certain movies, the ones that date really badly especially, will be like, hey, look at our technology, look at this cutting edge. Remember Halloween Resurrection when texting was a new thing?
Yeah, I'm surprised they never really used at any point was any type of like thermal technology thing.
Yeah, well, I guess. I mean, maybe if the cops wanted to use that at the end, maybe the SWAT team get into the house at the end. Maybe they were using that. But what makes sense to me is that like most people don't have access to that, so it felt believable in the sense that no, she's using the things that she actually has around the house that she can use to like fight them. Most people don't have a set of thermal goggles they can whip out at any any key point.
And I'm sure like you could probably also like. I mean, obviously they don't go here, but like, I mean, you could probably make some type of leap of logic where, I mean, if the suit can make you invisible, maybe it can also hide body temperature or something. I don't know. Like the one thing I was kind of thinking of, which again, they don't really explain, but I did kind of wonder if like, if maybe the suit also like augmented your strength or something a little bit. 'Cause a lot of the time he's just punching people. And like, and I guess maybe he's not killing them when they do it, but it seems like, I don't know, like it would be once you know the general vicinity of where the person is, like you could tackle them or punch back or something, but I don't know.
No, there's several examples. I wasn't going to bring this up till later, but there are several examples of him seemingly having extra strength. And given the ending, I think the ending confirms that there is increased strength because it's not just him that it seems to affect.
That's true, yeah.
So, I mean, because I think early on, I was just sort of going under the assumption of, oh, well, it's like slasher movie rules. The slasher villain just has a bit more strength for no reason. But I think the way it's used later on, and then especially with the ending, I felt like it was kind of saying, no, the suit does give the person some extra strength for whatever reason. It's got some, I don't know. But it's again, it's one of those things you can kind of roll with because it doesn't defeat the purpose of the point of the movie. It's kind of...
Sure. Yeah, there's nothing about it that will be like, oh, it ruined the movie for me or anything. But it's just something, I was kind of curious about.
Yeah. So they set this stuff up, and the Invisible Man kind of messes with her life, where she goes for a job interview, and he's removed all of her portfolio because she's going for an architect's job. That's what she used to do. It also makes her look crazy in various other ways. She eventually finds the bottle of diazepam that she dropped at the house, which was what she used to drug him, and he leaves it on the kitchen or the toilet counter for her.
And what I like about this stuff is like it's not just he's not just trying to like physically torture her, because it could be very easy to do something where he's like hunting her down or whatever. I like that. And again, it feels very timely because these are like the kind of stories you hear about people like that gaslight women. That like there's a thing where shitty dudes will try to make a woman think like she's crazy. Yeah,
that's a theme. That's a theme that comes up multiple times in this movie.
Yeah. Which very obviously, if you're running around saying, "Oh no, like my boyfriend is not really dead. He's invisible and he's trying to kill me," it's like, you're gonna sound crazy. But even like the more subtle stuff where it is like, "Oh, like like why'd you turn the oven up so high?" Or, "Oh, like how could you completely forget your portfolio at this important interview?" And all this kind of stuff. You can see how it would like slowly start to affect you.
Yeah, because he is out to torment her, and from everything we hear about what he was like before, this was kind of like what he did. He would make her feel like she was the crazy one for like thinking she was being mistreated, or thinking that and it's used by him multiple times effectively. I love how it's used at the ending. Actually, we'll get there when we get there.
Actually, I mean, I don't want to jump ahead like too much, but one of the things I like about this is that like his. You find out later that his plot isn't to kill her. Like he's actually doing this to like win her back. Which is perfect. It's the perfect kind of asshole behavior. Like, this is how you get a woman back. You have to like scare them into it. Because he's trying to make you think like, oh yeah, like this is what your life's like without me. This is why you need me. Like I can make this stop. And it's like such a more shitty, terrifying thing to do versus someone just trying to run at you and kill you,
Well, it's what makes it feel far more relatable. As much as, like, obviously fantastical, a lot of it is because he's invisible and because of maybe his super strength that he seems to have at various points. It does have a point. This is what I was saying where I said it doesn't defeat the point of the movie, because the point of the movie is to take the idea of like this asshole abusive guy who tries to gaslight his girlfriend into coming back with him, and tries to ruin her relationships with everyone around her and make her feel alone and vulnerable so that she'll feel like she needs him. Like, that core idea is just a sadly an everyday thing, and what the movie's doing is taking it and turning it up to 11 in this sort of like science fiction horror way of like, you know, making everything, you know, the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Teenagers think high school is hell. The show literally puts the school at the mouth of hell. You know, that is the it's the metaphor, right? It takes the real thing and turns it up to movie heights of ridiculous, but it keeps its point, and that's why the movie is still effective, because it's still actually saying something, and it's still using it to show, hey, this is what men actually do. This is what some men do to some women, and this is us showing that in a heightened sense, where it's more entertaining and more like fantastical, but the core idea of what it's doing is still there. So. Like, yeah, so, and the whole thing about leaving the bottle of the diazepam out for her to find, and the idea that this is in her blood, and that's because she faints at the job interview, and this is why, because he's drugged her, like she drugged him, and like this is kind of, and this is why like we don't think she's created, because even though we know that something's going on, like we would maybe like, one of the complaints we could have as an audience is that she jumps to the conclusion that he's around too quickly, but I think this is proof to her that it's him, that it has to be him. He's the only one who can know about this.
Yeah.
And they do a whole thing where the brother like shows her a photo of like his actual death. Like, so it's like, hey, there's a body here. It's like, but I mean, obviously that can be fake. So is he in on it? And he like assures her, no, like, there's nothing going on. Because she goes to him and says, like, tell him to stop. I know it's him. Tell him to stop. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
And then like you know, I think the first time we see the brother, I think we are kind of like, screw this guy. But then the second time, I actually did feel a little sympathy for him, because he actually like kind of, you know, confides in her. He's like, listen, like he controlled me too. Like I hated him as well. Like I was like, you know, obviously he's not controlling her in the same way, but you know, he was also kind of like under his thumb. And so I think like, not like you feel like he's like, you know, a saint of a character or anything, but after that second time, it's kind of like, oh, hey, like, yeah, he's like he was kind of like a victim in some ways too, and then I like that kind of gets flipped later on as well.
Yeah, so basically her sister sort of go on. What is it, Tim? What's so important?
Yeah, I was just thinking too, like we actually going like way back to the beginning of the yeah, that opening scene,
the Big Bang. Of the movie. Okay, I get you. Right.
But we kind of did talk about like everything that happens like in that scene though, because I just want to go back to, again, it was so well done, and like it feels so tense when she's sneaking around, and then I love the part where she's doing everything so well, and then she like accidentally hits the dog's food bowl, and it's just such a loud like sound compared to like the silence, everything you hear, and it was just so tense. And then yeah, once she actually you know, does start running, and like you had mentioned, like this whole time, like he's not getting up from bed, like it's very tense, but it also feels kind of safe, you know, right up to the second where her sister picks her up, and then finally you start to see him running through the woods and like putting his hand through the car.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the shot of it is just from inside the car. We don't cut to a shot of him running in the woods. We just see him running through the woods, like behind her, like because she's like, you know, on the left of the car, and we just see like from through the window. Him running from the woods to right up, and he starts banging on it and then punches through the window, and like that's when our sister's like, oh shit, I just need to go. I just need to drive.
Yeah. I feel like I really like Whannell, because I don't know, it feels like he exhibits a lot of like restraint as a director, because it feels like there's so many times where, you know, in other movies they would pan back to him and the bed would be empty, or, you know, you would see a shot through the house and you just see him like standing behind like a, you know, a wall or something, or or again like him screaming through the woods or anything. But yeah, I like that he's and I mean, it is the Invisible Man, so like I like that you don't see him, you know, throughout most of the scene, even though he does still feel like a threatening presence, and then right up until that very last, you know, scene when they're coming away.
Well, I think the point of that, why it's so effective, is that even before he was literally invisible, she was constantly in fear of what he might do, even when he wasn't around. So I think the idea that in that opening scene, even though he's not invisible yet, it still has that tense feeling of like, I hope he doesn't see me doing any of this, right? I hope like his presence still kind of felt like that. So later on, it feels like it's just like a natural extension of who he was. So at least dramatically, it doesn't feel forced, it doesn't feel fake. It feels like, no, this is just who he is. This is what the relationship was. So yeah, so at this point, like, her sister gets really pissed at her. Emily gets pissed at her because the Invisible Man has sent her an email from Cecilia, because I don't even think we've mentioned Elisabeth Moss's name, Cecilia. She, from her laptop, saying how much she hates her sister and how she wants her out of her life. And I like the way this played, in the sense that, like, because this could have been very easy, like, well, would you believe this email if it was just like the worst thing, like if it was just like the most awful thing ever? But it sounds like he knows her well enough to kind of word it in a way that it feels like vicious but believable, like,
sure,
you know, pointed out the things that she's actually done in her life, so that it feels kind of specific and not just, because if I sent you an email saying, oh, I hate you and I want you to die, and like, you'd probably think something weird's here, like this is either a prank or a joke or something. But you know, I'd have to like word it really specifically so you knew I was being dead serious and I hated your guts.
Yeah. And I think like the way they, like the way they also set the sister up, like, I feel like I don't know how to describe it, but she seemed like someone that is maybe like a little more like focused on herself or something, like maybe that like this would play into more of her kind of being like, hey, like, I helped you, like, screw you, like, I guess maybe like, he knows how to offend her more. And I think also part of it is like they mention something about, like, I think in the email, like, she mentions like, just giving her like a little bit of money or something, like, which I guess maybe that could also be believable if it makes her sound like, oh, I'm rich now and everyone wants my money, like, screw you, like, this is all you're gonna get.
Yeah, well, when she gets her money, like, when she goes back home to James and Sydney, she buys him a new ladder, because there's like a little bit earlier on where like there's like he's painting and his ladder's like really small and he's struggling. So she buys him a ladder and then also gives her a bank account, because we hear she wants to go to this a certain college and it's going to be really expensive. He's not sure if he can afford it on his cop salary, and she's like, oh no, I'm going to put $10,000 in a bank account every month for you, so you can go to whatever school you want to.
Actually, two things I want to bring up real quick, because we're kind of talking about it now. You mentioned before the like Elisabeth Moss performance. It's fantastic, but I think everyone really does a good job. Like, I think like James and Sydney were very believable. Like I like the scenes of them just kind of hanging out and like getting along, and
I think the important thing is that they're likable, because when what happens soon happens, like, you have to feel uncomfortable that they think that she did something, and it's like, oh no, I don't, like, you want them to know the truth, because you kind of hate the idea that he hates her now, like, it really upsets you.
But you know what else I really like, though, is I like their house.
Bananas. Oh, you have their house.
Bananas are fine, I guess. But
no, your fruit. No. Okay, sorry, apples, oranges, whatever you like to have.
I like especially in contrast to the opening scene, which is just like this very big, spacious, like, very modern decor kind of house, and then to kind of juxtapose it to what feels like a very much more believable, very small,
normal,
like a very normal house, and then but I feel like they still find like a lot of fun ways to like play with the different things in it, like they don't need like big fancy stuff.
Sure.
And I feel like so many horror movies are just like especially like these kind of ones that with like teens in the suburbs and stuff. I feel like the houses are always like these big mansions and stuff.
Yeah, it always feels like they're always just a couple of classes above what they should be able to afford in terms of their house. Yeah, it's like, like that. Like, you're telling me these are normal teenagers with normal families, but their houses are clearly someone who's at least at the top of the upper class kind of range of like buying a house. But one of the things as well that we should mention is the idea that her sister, when she picks her up at the start, doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't realize, like, she because I assume when she's like waiting for someone to pick her up, I was like, okay, her friend or whoever is coming to get her, because they know she's making an escape. But when her sister arrives, she's like, well, why am I here? What's going on? What's like, she has no idea she's in this abusive, like, I mean, she knows she's in a relationship with someone, but she has no idea it's this abusive, or that she's this scared and she wants to run away. And I think the house at the start is part of that, in the sense that, oh, like, you look at that for, at face value from the outside, you go, oh, she's got this rich boyfriend. That should be like a paradise to her. There's this big fancy modern house with security. Like, she's living the dream. She's found a sugar daddy, right? Like, this is from the outside perspective, this feels like, but no, this feels like a prison to her. This big fancy house that costs millions and millions of dollars feels like a prison. And I think this idea that on the outside it feels normal, but you don't know what's going within the relationship, that this idea is going in there. I watched Big Little Lies last year, and like how there's like a seemingly perfect relationship on the outside, but it's just abusive on the inside, and none of her friends or anything know that anything's going on. That's definitely in this movie as well with that stuff.
Yeah.
And then the other thing here, of course, is that what he's clearly trying to do here with the sister is he's trying to take away her support group. He's trying to take away all of her other connections, so that all she has left is him. And then that, of course, leads into what he also does with James and Sydney in a minute. But really good stuff.
Yeah. If maybe I have like one minor quibble, and again, it's just like a little nitpick. Like, it doesn't really make like a huge difference in the movie for me, but like it does feel like he. Like, it does seem kind of surprising that these people who are very close to her like seem very like very fastly can like kind of turn on her. Like, again, I'm sure that email was like very hard to read and very damaging and everything, but still at the same time, she's been through so much stuff, and like if she's showing up at her sister's door and saying like, no, please, like, I really need you, like, let's talk this out, like yeah, it feels like kind of weird that she would just be like, no, screw you, and like shut the door in her face. And then same thing with what happens with James and them in a minute. If it's like, please, can we just talk about this instead of like just automatically like leaving?
I don't know if I agree with this, actually, especially because what happens next with James and Sydney, I mean, the sister, I can see what you're saying, and that can go either way, but at the same time, all she really does is like get angry and slam the door. That's not her saying, I'll never speak to you again. I mean, maybe she does say that, but like, I don't really believe she means it, right? Like, sure. This is something that can be patched up after she's calmed down. But James and Sydney, I totally get this one, because like, Sydney's with her, and then this is when she goes back to check her laptop after the email things happened, and she's like, oh my god, this has happened. She starts crying, and Sydney comes in the room, and basically Adrian, as the Invisible Man, slaps Sydney across the face out of nowhere, and it's really hard slap. And
again, if the strength does, or if the suit does maybe have extra strength or something, maybe it really hurts.
Yeah.
But I feel like I need to see this scene again, because like they weren't like super close like to each other, right? Like,
I mean, she was close enough. She was close enough to slap her, if that's what you're getting at.
Wasn't she like kind of getting up off the floor though? Like, I don't know, like, to me it felt, and obviously I just saw this once in theaters, maybe if I go watch it again I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, but like it seemed like yeah, she was close enough to slap her, but at the same time I feel like you would have seen her like like you don't see her like pulling her arm back and everything, like,
oh no, of course you don't, but I think the reason why it works, and the reason why, because what else is the answer? Like, from Sydney's perspective, she's talking to her, right, and then all of a sudden she feels slapped across the face and her nose is bleeding. Like, she has no reason to think there's an invisible person in the room. She basically, her mind just sort of deduces the only thing that makes sense is that the person she's talking to just hit her, and that makes her scared. And then obviously James comes in, and it makes sense to me that James immediately gets angry with her, because under what circumstance as a parent would you not immediately just side with your kid? And like,
totally, yeah.
Like, even if there's a chance that you believe that maybe there's an explanation to this, you would be like, no, I'm going to get her to safety first. If there's something to talk about, we'll talk about it later, but I'm not having like my child near you right now. Like,
sure.
It makes sense. And given that by this point in the movie he's heard her claim that her boyfriend or ex-boyfriend is walking around and invisible, because he was at the meeting with Tom, that he heard her theory, she's starting to sound crazy, and more crazy. So her hitting like his daughter to him at this point is just the next escalation in her losing her mind. And like, so to me, like, it's not so much that he vilifies her immediately, it's that he buys that she's going down this path of going crazy, And I think that's believable to me, that he's like, okay, if nothing else, I am getting my daughter away from you right now. And this is when she's left alone in the house, and we get this extended 20-30 minute sequence of various things happening where she's looking around the house, she's trying to find where he is. She's like, she basically does that thing from I Know What We Did Last Summer, where she's like, I'm right here, come on, come and get me, what are you waiting for? Like, she basically has that moment in the house. And
I thought, isn't there kind of a moment like that in Home Alone too? Or not Home Alone the sequel, but the Home Alone as well.
Kind of, I guess.
I think there's a part where he's like I'm right here, come and get me.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a different context, though, because he's kind of luring them into a trap, right? Because he's like, you better come and get me before I call the cops. Like, that's what you're thinking of, right?
Probably.
Yeah, it's not the same thing. It's not the same as there's a killer or someone stalking him, and he's like, "What are you doing? Come out and find me! Stop tormenting me!" But she puts like coffee beans or whatever it is all over the floor so that if he has to walk over it. But of course, I'm thinking to myself here that, like, yeah, but he's seeing you do this, so he knows not to walk over it. So I like that she starts to think outside the box, but at the same time, she has to do it in a way that he can't predict it, or he has no choice but to like walk over the thing or whatever.
And I like that she, like, when she's like kind of like sitting down and it's like very late at night, and like she like starts having a conversation with him. And I like the idea of like kind of, it's like going back and forth between like, kind of like the doorway where she's looking at, and she's kind of saying these things, and I like just the idea of like, he might be there, he might be hearing what she's saying, but like we don't know.
Yeah, and that's I mean, it's played off very well, where he might be listening to every conversation at all times, but at the same time, it also makes me think about it's usually about the ending, which we'll get to when we get to it, but so she eventually has the idea of like phoning his phone, like, if does he still have his cell phone on him, and if so, like, well, like, is it here? And she phones it, and she hears it vibrating from the attic, so she gets the ladder, goes up to the attic. It's all very tense. She goes up and she finds the phone. She finds like her portfolio that was taken from before, and then his phone actually vibrates, and it's like a text from an unknown number saying surprise. So he's outright communicating with her at this point, and we get kind of one of the big money shots here when she goes over to the attic entrance, and she pours over some of the paint because she suspects that he might be down there, and he's like right in front of her on the ladder, like he's right in her face, and we get the paint just on the head and shoulders.
Yeah. And now I don't know if you'd like consider this like a jump scare, but like a lot of people in my theater like jumped at this scene. Like, it was just such a, like, because up until then you just have seen so little of, if you see anything, like any evidence of him, it's been so minute that to all of a sudden have like a very big, like, yeah, he's definitely there. Is shocking. I mean, it's a jump scare, but like, it's a well-earned jump scare. It doesn't feel cheap. It's just like, no, it's natural, it makes sense. We know like the difference is it's like not like a big dumb CGI thing like jumping out at you. Well, no, it's not, but it's also completely set up, and we know there's a chance he's there. We just didn't expect him to be so close. That's kind of what the jumpiness is of it. So no, it's well done. It's really good stuff, and she kind of chases him down. She's got like a knife. But we see that he's been at the water, and he's like washed the paint off kind of thing. But then he picks her up. This is actually one of the points where I said he must have super strength, because he like picks her up by the throat, and she's like completely off of her feet. It's very Michael Myers-esque, where she's just like in the air dangling, her feet are kicking. And even if he's like because he's like pretty physically fit guy, that'd still be pretty hard. Yeah, so I think at this point, at least I was thinking, okay, he's at least got supernatural, like slasher movie villain strength. But they have this struggle where he's throwing her through tables and into the cupboards, and there's like stuff smashing, and she's like smashing like stuff over his head. She's got like a pot and a pan, and she's got like a something something that smashes over his head, and she's just like trying to hit him as much as she can. And she eventually makes a run for it, and and I love that the camera follows her as she runs out of the house, and she's running for as far as she can, and we see her go past the camera on one of the there's one of the houses has got a security camera, and this is when she calls for the lift. And I love kind of how smart she is as a character here, because
as much as she's like, obviously she's scared and she's running, she's being proactive because she intentionally calls the cab and tells the cab to go to his house. She goes to his house when she knows he's not already there because he was just chasing her. So this is smart stuff. She goes there to try and like find some evidence or figure stuff out, and she does. She gets in there and she's like walking through this house for the first time since she escaped, and like there's dust sheets over everything and the wind's blowing through it because it's like the morning now, and she goes down into the lab area and she finds like another suit, like a version of this suit. It's like it's in like a sort of like it's been held up by like whatever and this like mannequin tear thing, and she basically turns it off, and we get like all these little cameras like in the suit and like moving around and like sort of, so you get this idea that they're all little cameras but also screens. And I mean, if anything, there should be like a Predator effect because it's hard to buy that it's such a seamless like truly invisible thing, but we'll go with it because it's a movie and it's fun and it's part of the charm. But
and if I have one minor complaint is like the suit, the way it looks, it makes sense, but I just don't think it's like that cool looking.
That's fair.
But I don't know. It, like to me, like it seems like something like that you'd see like a Marvel villain or something. Like this is what they would do if there was like an Invisible Man character and they need to like update it for a movie or something. But
yeah, it feels like it feels like the suit itself kind of like makes the movie feel less mysterious. Like once you see what the suit looks like, it feels kind of like, okay, as much as I liked it was just a guy who was invisible before, and obviously this solves that he's not naked with his dick flapping around because everything, Hollow Man, the Invisible Man, they're all cases of like the person like has like a serum or something that makes them invisible, so they have to be naked so it doesn't whereas here he's in a suit so he's not like cold at least. Right?
Makes sense.
Although that does actually raise a little minor plot hole, I suppose, if you think about it. Like the breath when he's outside, like why is his breath showing?
I was actually thinking about that, but I mean, you have to breathe through the suit.
Yeah, that's true.
So I guess, kind of let it go.
Yeah.
But I know I was thinking like the same thing too. Afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. In fact, I'm surprised they didn't do a shot at one point where he lifted the bottom of it up to see his mouth, and then just sort of closed it again. Maybe they thought that would look too goofy, but I don't know. I'm surprised they didn't do something like that. But anyway, she finds the suit, and she actually stashes it in like a secret compartment she had in the closet where she was hiding stuff to escape from before, because she actually hears the dog barking, so she knows that he's about to arrive. She knows that he's about to so she has to hide it before he can see her do this.
One thing I do have to say is, as much as I like her character, screw you for like never taking this dog. Like, he seems like such a good dog, but like, all right, so it's one thing like, all right, you can't take him with you when you're making your first initial runaway, I guess, whatever. But then like afterwards, once he's dead, it's like, all right, so is this dog just like fending for himself on this like abandoned house? Like, well, someone needs to take care of it.
I think from her perspective, she assumed that the brother took care of the dog or something. She has no reason to think that the dog was just left there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at this point, though, when she comes and sees that the dog is still there, it's like, all right, now come on, someone's got to take care of this thing.
But again, she's left the Lyft driver outside, and she just she narrowly makes her escape. If anything, the dog's why she's able to get away, because the dog kind of causes enough of a distraction. But there is like a moment here where she's hiding in the closet, and he like steps into the closet, and we see like the footprint in the carpet, and that's how she knows he's there, and she gives him a whack. So fun enough sequence.
No, this house feels so out of the way and so remote, and like the Lyft driver even says something like, "Oh, that's far," I think. Mm-hmm. So that was one thing that was kind of like how the hell did he get to the house so fast? Like, although I guess if we're to believe that, spoiler alert for the end of the movie, if there's two of them possibly, that I don't know if
I don't think there's two of them the whole movie. Tim, the answer to this is really simple. He can drive. I don't know what else you want. Like he gets there like 10 minutes after she does. That's quite believable to me.
I guess. Yeah, I guess he doesn't have to wear the suit the whole time because
Exactly.
I guess I'm just thinking of him constantly wearing it, just driving a car while he's invisible. But yeah, I guess he can take it off and go there.
Yeah, I mean, I assume he's just driving. He's just 10 minutes behind her. That makes sense to me. But she gets out and she calls her sister and says, look, I know you're mad at me right now, but I need to see you. And she gets her to a public place, and that's what's her suggestion, because obviously she's like, oh, well, nothing can happen in a public place with anywhere but people, right? So they get to this restaurant, and her sister comes in, and she's mad at her, but she's like, willing to hear her out. And she's like, look, I didn't send you that email, and I found proof. I actually found proof that he has made himself invisible, and he's tormenting me. And our sister's starting to sort of listen to her, starting to not look pissed, start to like look like she's actually starting to believe her a little bit. And it's just at this moment, this might be the best kind of shock moment of the movie. Is at one point our sister just notices next to Elisabeth Moss's head there's like a floating knife. It's just sort of, it's vertically standing there, just this floating knife, and it's just you've just got long enough to notice that it's there. As she does, right? You just get this shot of her noticing it's there, and just as you realise what's there, that it's a knife floating in midair, it moves and quickly slits the sister's throat.
Yeah.
And as soon as that happens, the knife just flies into Elisabeth Moss's hand. So to anyone who now sees this, and there's this woman actually who turns around and sort of notices that this woman's dying, that has her throat slit, and starts screaming at Elisabeth Moss. And Elisabeth Moss, who has just watched her sister be killed in front of her, is just in shock, and it takes like a while for her to drop the knife, and she's just kind of in a state of shock as, like, you know, waiters come and subdue her, and obviously they're waiting for police and so on. And this is such a brutal moment, and it's a moment that I think kind of makes the whole movie work for a couple of reasons, because up until this point, as much as everything he's doing is awful, and he's this awful human being because of what he's doing to her, you don't necessarily know up until this point that he's willing to kill someone. Right?
Yeah.
This is the first time he actually takes that step where he's actually a complete psychopath and is willing to kill someone. So that's a big step for the movie, because now he's actually dangerous in that sense. And then on top of that, I feel like this is the perfect escalation for me, where, okay, we're just getting settled into this idea where she knows, and because at this point it almost starts to feel like it's not a horror movie, because, okay, she's proven that it's this suit, and because it is just a suit, it's like, well, it's not that mysterious or creepy anymore, it's just this like technological thing we have to fight back against. But this moment makes it a horror movie again. This moment says, no, he is a killer now. And it becomes scary again, and that's why I think this moment's so effective. On top of the fact that it's just shot beautifully, the way, because it's the way that it's long enough to see it floating there, and as soon as you comprehend, wait a minute, he's holding a knife up next to her head, zoom, throat slit, and dead.
Yeah, it's so well done, and it's just like it's not just the act itself that's surprising, but I do feel like, you know, we're conditioned to think like, all right, she's in this big crowded place, like, it's, you know, there's so many people around, like, this has to be safe, right? Like, you know, surely he's not going to do something with so many witnesses, but, you know, it's like when you're out in a public place, like, no one's paying attention, you know, or at least, you know, not constantly looking over, so you do something like this so quick that, you know, most people probably aren't even going to realize it until someone does look, and it sets off this chain reaction. Yeah, it's like I was like really surprised at this point. I was like, holy shit! Like, talk about like escalation. It's like, all right, things are getting like really exciting.
Yeah, talk about escalation. Talk about, I mean, and to go back to the gaslighting. This is like the ultimate gaslighting. She gets thrown in an asylum as a psychotic person because she's made to look like she's just killed her sister, and she's screaming about an invisible man who's responsible for it. Like, she looks like a raving lunatic at this point, and we know it's all true, but no one else does. And even people in the restaurant are all scared of her now. In 1 second, he makes perfect strangers think that she's a psychopath in the space of a second. And I think that's the other thing I love about this scene, is that it really pays off, like, just how much he can get away with being invisible, like, just the potential of the dangerous and dark potential of an invisible maniac. Not to use that phrase.
I like even the start of the scene, like, they kind of have like this weird little jokey waiter that, like, it kind of like like, as I was watching, I was like, that's kind of like a weird scene to have, like, yeah, they're kind of like joking about the menu. He's like kind of this like hipster waiter and stuff. And then like,
Jojo, what's so funny about this though, Tim, is that I've had this waiter multiple times. This is exact dude. Like,
oh yeah,
the amount of waiters I've had who are this hipster douchebag, I tell you.
Yeah. Oh no, like I totally get it, and like I thought it was kind of funny, but it just seemed kind of weird and random. But I do like looking back on it now. It's like I like how it's setting you up for, even like the start of the scene is like a little jokey because it's like, yeah, we're gonna have like one of the most gruesome parts of the movie.
Yeah, it's lulling you into a false sense of security is what it's doing. Yeah. You're like, hey, it's a normal scene. They're in a restaurant. They're safe. There's nothing can go wrong here.
Yeah, and then like I like after this, like she's being interviewed by like James and this other cop, and then like you mentioned before, it's not just this particular incident, but they're also like looking at the stuff that's been going on, and like they show the security camera of her like running through the streets, and she looks like insane because she's just running scared of something that's not there.
It's the security camera footage. It's the email to the sister. It's hitting Sydney. Like it looks like a natural escalation, right? It looks like believable that she's gotten to this point, and in the sense where because James, and I like James's reaction here, where he actually feels guilty, where he's like, I shouldn't have left you alone. Like, as much as I cared about my daughter, I failed you by not being there to try and help you because he still thinks she's going insane, right? And I failed you by not being there for you. So he's still quite likable because this could almost be the annoying trope, right, where no one believes her, right? Because how many supernatural horror movies have we watched where the wife is seeing creepy shit and the husband just doesn't believe her, right? This could almost be like that, but he's still very likable in this scene because in believing that she is going insane, he genuinely feels guilty that he's like, look, if you take it from his perspective where he sees these things happening, he sees the escalation of like, okay, the fainting, the thinking the invisible man's happening, to hitting his daughter, to then this murder, like it's actually really likable that he's like, no, I should have been there for you better, I should have done better, but not in the believer sense, because of course what she's saying does sound completely insane, but like so I like that element to it. He comes across as very likable even when he's doubting her, which is cool.
Totally.
So
and then, so now she's like in this I don't know if it was like a security prison or like a mental asylum or whatever, but she's basically like
mental hospital, I think would be the
hospital. And then I gotta add and actually maybe I was skipping ahead, but I do like too when she's like talking to the cops and she's saying like, no, I have proof, but like I can't tell you here, he's listening, like and again you kind of almost like want to be like, all right, can someone just kind of get up and just kind of start like, just like waving their hands around so they can feel something. But I mean, obviously everyone's like not going to do that.
It almost like, so just humor me for a second and let me like try and prove that he's here. But like, no, she does sound crazy. And even though we know she's right, he's probably in the room listening to them. Like,
Totally.
So... So the lawyer comes to see her and reveals that he is in on it, and he's like, look, I can get you out of here, I can make this all go away, because what we find out here is that she's pregnant, and she's been pregnant for about a month, and basically what we find out is that the lawyer, Tom, says this can all go away, all you have to do is go back to him and have the baby. That's all you have to do, because it turns out like he wanted to have a baby, and that's kind of what finally motivated her to try and escape, because she knew that if that happened then she'd probably be tied to him forever, and like that'd be it. And he wants her to have
nice there's a nice like setup to this too, like earlier when she was on the phone with the doctor and she's talking about the drugs that are in her system. It's kind of faint, but you hear the doctor say, oh, there's something else I want to talk to you about, but like she's already so like freaking out about the pill bottle that appeared in the bathroom that she's just like not listening on the phone. So I thought that was cool. And then I gotta admit, like it's not like anything. I don't think like anything in the movie necessarily like comes out of left field. Like I think the slitting the sister's throat was definitely pretty shocking, but like the brother stuff in this scene, I gotta admit, like I was like actually like surprised. Like it's not like out of nowhere, like it all makes sense in the story, but like once he kind of goes like
yeah, all you gotta do is go back to him. I was like, oh shit. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming.
But this was all part of his sick maniacal plan, and
I am curious though, like how they, like if she did agree to it, like I'm like, how did that work? Like, how are you going to get him out of like jail at this point?
yeah, or get her out of jail, you mean?
Or get her out of jail. I'm assuming you'll probably have to do something to reverse his fake death.
Well, that kind of happens anyway. Like, they have an explanation for that, because this is the thing: the brother doesn't know that he's going to be the scapegoat at this point. Because the brother's being used equally. But the brother's like doing it for him, and she steals one of his pens for later. And this is what I love when characters get proactive. I love that, because this is the beautiful thing. Like, so many movies are about how, like, the main character, especially when you've got like a character who's scared or weak early on. You know, Terminator is a big example of Sarah Connor, who's like, just like, as soon as stuff starts happening early in that film, she's terrified and she's kind of feeble. But over the course of the film, she grows, she becomes stronger, she finds her strength and realizes she can fight back and she can be strong. And it kind of happens here as well, because when we first see her after she escapes, she's like, you know, scared to leave the house. She's scared to walk down the driveway. But then here she gets this plan where she basically goes to the shower. She pulls out this pen that she's hidden throughout the day, and she's like, look, I'm not letting you have this baby, and I don't care if it means killing me. I am not giving you that. And she goes to stab herself and slit her wrists, essentially. And she does actually stab herself. Just the first puncture does happen. And it's just to lure him out. It's just to draw him out, so he'll grab her arm and stop her. And he grabs her arm, and she's got the shower turned on, and she just turns and says, "Oh, there you are," and then starts stabbing the shit out of him with a pen. And this is kind of, again, with the movie, it escalates again, right? Yeah. And this makes his suit glitch, because she stabbed him enough times that it's kind of glitching. So he's kind of flickering off or on, depending on what your perspective is, where you sort of see like part of his head and shoulders again, so every so often. And she kind of like, the security guard kind of opens, and he beats up a security guard. And this is like maybe where you can maybe have a little critique of like just how good he is, because he's basically John Wick as he walks through the halls of the hospital, taking out all these security guards, making them shoot themselves in the legs and bashing their heads into the walls. And like, to her credit though, like, again, she's like very sympathetic in this scene, not just because she's running away from someone who obviously is after her, but because she's constantly telling the guards and the people who are like running into the scene to know, like, he's right behind you, he's dangerous. She's trying to help them. They just don't believe her. They just think she's crazy. But of course, they do start to see things. Like, enough of them do start to see like him doing things to other guards. They know that something's there, and they get scared. There's one guy who's like sort of like just sort of like nervous, holding his gun, and then eventually the invisible man like shoots him in the leg and stuff.
Yeah, and I guess to, like, the cops' credit and stuff, or security guards or whatever. Like, one thing I kept thinking was like, all right, why doesn't someone just, as soon as you see that glitch or whatever, why doesn't someone just shoot her or anything? But I guess you could say like, oh, it's such a weird thing that it gives them enough like pause to question like what the hell's going on, that gives him the time he needs to bash them in.
Yeah, it's the shock factor. It's just kind of like when it first started happening to her, she wasn't really sure what was happening. Like, there's like an initial shock of like, oh, what the hell's going on here? So now we get this big scene though where he's kind of glitching in and out, and he's like killing all these security guards, or at least, I mean, I think later on we find out that not all of them are dead. Some of them he's just hurt really badly. He's just sort of incapacitating them. But basically, what he threatens here
kind of reminded me of, obviously it makes sense, but it reminded me of like Upgrade a little bit.
Sure, yeah, but so she runs outside into the car park, the parking lot, and it's raining, and which is really cool because it means when he's walking in the rain, you get the odd glimpse of him just from the shape of his body. But she's kind of like ducking and diving. She's looking for him under cars. Because she's got one of the guns at this point from one of the security guards, and she's trying to kill him and try to find him. But this is the thing, he grabs her and, talks to her and says, well, maybe you can threaten yourself, but here's the thing, if you don't do what I won't hurt you, I'll hurt someone you care about. And then he brings up Sydney, and he basically implies that he's going to go straight to Sydney and kill her. And this sort of like he drives off in a car. She tries to shoot the car. She ends up like stealing some other dude's car. And there's a lot of funny about here that I really liked, where she's sort of like, she shoots this car. The guy gets out and he's okay. He sort of bashed his nose on the steering wheel, but he's not too bad. And she steals his car. And when she gets in the car, like this guy's wife's on the phone to him, right? On the car phone, and she's like, "Honey, William, you okay? William, what's going on, William?" And like eventually, Cecilia does pick up the phone, and says, "Sorry, he's okay, I promise," and like hangs up. And I thought that was kind of really, it was kind of funny, but like a really sympathetic, funny thing that she's willing to like, "Oh, but I promise your husband's okay, right? It's fine. Like I'm sorry I stole the car, but like he's fine."
I forget what he says, but there's something when he's like stumbling out of the car, he says like what the hell happened to her or something like that. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I don't know, I actually like that a little bit. But she actually she phones James, says, "Look, Adrian, like I know this sounds crazy, but he's on the way to your daughter. She's in danger. Go home now. Like you have to go home now." And he makes it there first, and he comes in, and at this point, I think when the Invisible Man is already kind of like sort of grabbed her at this point and has her by the throat. He comes in and he's getting the shit kicked out of him by him because he can't see him, and he's like reaching for the gun and he can't quite get there. And this is when Cecilia gets to show up and be the savior, because she comes in with the fire extinguisher, which was set up earlier, sprays it at him, reveals him completely because he's got the white sort of frosty look to him now, and shoots him multiple times with a handgun. He goes down, she unmasks him, and it reveals the brother. And I have to say, I don't know if it's just because the movie's really well set up, but after like about 3 seconds of like, oh, it's the brother, I went to myself, no, this is actually, it wasn't him the whole time. This is just him now. This is just another one of Adrian's, ruses, essentially.
Yeah, it feels like the when she starts to pull off the mask, it just feels like it would be too convenient if it was like Adrian.
Yeah, well, I think that was the thing, is that it felt too easy. See, when she shoots him, I went, wait, is this the end of the movie? This feels a little bit too easy. Yeah. So when she unmasks him and it's Tom, I was like, okay, because this feels believable again, where you can sort of see how Adrian's going to start trying to get out of it. And of course, the police go to Adrian's place and they find him tied up in the basement. He's essentially faked his own kidnapping and he's blamed his brother for everything, which I think was always the plan. It was always the plan that this was my brother and that he would be dead, so he couldn't tell anyone what was really going on. And he's back now. And Cecilia says to James, look, I know this was really him. It wasn't, like, he was the only one who knew about the diazepam. That couldn't have been Tom the whole time.
That's true, yeah.
And it's like, look, I'm hearing you, but like, we can't prove that. Like, what do we do now? I have to do my job and try and solve this. And basically, it's later that night where she's in bed again. So they trust her again, right? And she's in bed with Sydney, and she's just looking across at Sydney, and she basically realizes that as long as Adrian's out there, she's never going to be completely free, and the people she cares about are never going to be free. So the end of the movie is this ruse, right, where we find out later in the scene that James is outside, with he's listening in. Cecilia's got a wire on her, but she goes in and she basically phones Adrian, and Adrian's like, "Oh my God, Cecilia, I'm so glad you called." And he's playing dumb, he's doing all these things, and she's like, "I want to see you tonight." So she goes back to the house and she puts on a dress for a fancy dinner. And what I love about this, this is what let me point this out because this is so good, is that she shows up, and one of the first things he says to her, because she's in a dress, she's got herself made up, and he says, "Oh, you look amazing." And then when they come inside, he's like, "Oh, I didn't know what you would want, so I ended up overdoing it, and I've got almost like a buffet. I've got some steak, I've got some Italian, I've got some Chinese food, so it's like a little bit of everything." And what is so beautiful about this is that when you go back to the scene earlier on in the movie where she's explaining to her sister and James what he was like, one of the key things that she brought up is that, how he would control her, right? And at first he would start having an opinion on what she wore and then she was only allowed to eat and dress as to his preference. Like, he would decide that. And I love the idea here that this confirms that he was there for that conversation, because he's intentionally trying to show to her that he has changed and that he's appreciating what she chose to wear. He's considered that she might want any of this food, and it's basically tactical. He's manipulating her again. Because he heard what she said about him earlier on. He's trying to actively counterpoint everything she said, and I love that, because one of the key things here is that it's almost ambiguous, where it never really outright confirms that it really was him the whole time, but there's just everything we know about him, and there's one little moment where he says surprise, just like he did when because she says to him, like, if this is going to be a thing, and if you want to be a part of this baby's life, Like, you have to be honest with me. You have to admit what you did. And this is the thing. If he admits what he did, he's admitting that he killed his sister. Which she never mentions in the scene. She never brings up, admit that you killed my sister, but you have to admit that this was you the whole time. He never does. He's never willing to do it. But he does, at one point when he touches her leg, says surprise. And I think that's the one little thing we have to confirm that it's him. Even though there's other like clues, like like the him only knowing about the diazepam, all of the other things, yada yada yada. So that's basically, I love all that stuff. And then the actual ending, of course, is that she goes off to the bathroom to like freshen up. And when he's waiting for her to come back, and he's sitting there all smug, thinking that he's winning, that he's getting away with this, and he's cutting his meat, basically like. An invisible entity of some kind picks up his hand as he's holding the blade and makes him slit his own throat. And we know that he's got security cameras everywhere. We saw that at the start of the movie. I think we even cut to the security camera footage at one point during the middle of this to see it from that perspective. Yeah. And it looks like he just slits his own throat. And then, she walks back out in her dress, screams, calls 911, says, I think, so-and-so's just trying to commit suicide. And then we see her get up, and she just backs away, and she knows exactly where the line of sight ends. And when she like goes out of frame in the security camera, she stops crying. She just sits down and stares at him and watches him die. And it's like, oh, because keep in mind, she had that second invisible suit stashed away in the closet. And when James shows up, runs in, because when he hears all this from the wire, he runs in, and she's walking out the building with like a duffel bag, and she's got the invisible suit inside it, and she's like, yeah, I mean, he committed suicide. It's crazy that he would do that. I mean, what did it sound like on the comms? And him knowing what's just happened goes, yeah, sounded like he committed suicide. And the reason why this ending works really well is that it bookends the movie, because the movie ends how it started, with her leaving this house. But the first time she left the house, she was running, she was scared, she was escaping like she was a prisoner, she was climbing over the wall. This time, she walks out triumphantly, completely feeling safe, completely feeling that she's regained control of her own life, and the movie ends with her just walking away, sort of, and being triumphant. It's she's overcome her fear, and she's completely free now. She's finally, for the first time in the movie, she is completely free of this man's influence. And before, like, some people are going to nitpick and say it was the movie saying you should kill all your abusive exes. No, it's not saying that. It's a movie. It's heightened. The point is that you have to cut them out of your life completely. And in the movie's sense, because he's earned his death basically by everything he's done, by killing people. He's earned his death.
Man, I can already like just imagine like the shitty like men's rights takes on this movie.
You can already hear the this movie's too political, it's too SJW, blah, blah, blah. But it should be. The movie has something to say. Like this movie is to abusive abuse victims and relationships to what Get Out is to like the black community. I mean, maybe that's a weird comparison, but it's in those sort of lines where it's like, oh no, it's taking a lens on this particular issue. And in the Get Out's case, it was liberal racism, and in this movie's case, it's abuse, relationship abuse, domestic abuse. And not just physical either, right? That's one of the key things here. It's also mental, and
which is kind of like appropriate, because it's kind of like, I guess you could say, maybe like the invisible kind of abuse. Like
exactly, the invisible. The metaphor works, Tim. It works perfectly for what the movie is.
Yeah, it's so good, and this ending is great, and I like like you're saying, when she shows up at the house and she looks like so, like. She just looks like so stunning, and especially compared to like what we've just seen her, because like it was almost jarring, like the way she looked in the prison when she she had like no makeup, and she just looked like so like stressed and frazzled and like pale,
defeated. She was completely defeated. Yeah. And
then when she shows up here, it is it seems like a totally different person. And then I love like all these touches of like you were saying, like all these kind of callbacks, and it does feel weird, like actually seeing Adrian for the first time, because like we had like little glimpses of him before, but when you just kind of like see him, like he's been built up as this monster, and then you just see him as a regular man. and it's kind of like, oh no, like yeah, sometimes that's what the monster is, but it's like such a like it's so interesting seeing it like this at the end.
That's what makes the horror feel more sort of like acute, is that it is just a real person, and this is something that a person can do. That's why some people, you know, think that someone with an axe is much more effective than a ghost, because it's like, no, that's, some people actually does go around killing people, but obviously thankfully that's a relatively niche thing to happen. Unfortunately, abusive relationships like this are far more common, and I think it's interesting between something like this and something like Get Out and something like other movies that we've had in the last few years. I think what's interesting is that horror movies are now tackling things that are a bit more widespread, are a bit more like, we have to put a lens on this, we have to talk about these things happening, and it makes the horror feel a bit more, you know, even something like Revenge, which is like a rape revenge movie, but it was a rape revenge movie made for like a modern audience, where it actually kind of villainizes the culprits in the right way. You know, it wasn't I Spit in Your Grave, or like, you know, where it's more this kind of like grindhouse like exploitation movie. You know, I don't think Revenge ever felt like an exploitation movie. I don't think this or Get Out ever feels like an exploitation movie. They feel like they're more thoughtful, and they're not trying to pull punches. Like, you know, this movie like implies some very dark things that have happened to her, and they definitely feel, you feel the gut punch at certain moments, and all that stuff is really good. One of the lines, I just want to point out a line I love, when she's talking to the brother in the hospital. She refers to him as the jellyfish version of his brother, and says, "You're basically just as bad. You just don't have the spine to actually be awful enough to do any of it."
That was really good. Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. It's you know, it's just kind of like having this extra layer to it. Like, you can make an Invisible Man movie that's just like an invisible person trying to chase someone down, and it can be very fun, and it could be like even like a great movie or whatever. But when you actually make it about like this real world thing and kind of give it this like, you know, actual like, you know, social angle or problem or you know, to it or whatever, like it just makes it feel more deep, you know, makes it feel more real. Like, it gives like just all this more context and stuff that makes it you know, just I mean, it feel like more powerful thing.
Yeah, I mean, to look at it, I mean, just to sort of make it very clear here, like, the reason why this premise works with what it's doing in terms of its social issue is that it takes a premise of the Invisible Man, but makes it about the invisible abuse that she gets, like, in two different ways. Invisible in the sense that a lot of it is mental, but also invisible in the sense that it's invisible to everyone outside the relationship, where we don't see it, you know, like, and in that way, it's perfect for this premise. It's perfect to sort of apply it to the Invisible Man. And this is not a new thing either. Like, it's not like this is just a new thing horror movies are doing now. If you think of some of the best horror movies of all time, like the Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, you know, trilogy, that is like full of like, you know, social satire, and it uses the zombies to be about something, and even, you know, something like you know, some other stuff. I mean, Halloween less so, but there is a little bit of something in there. Like, we always talk about how horror movies can be tied to the times we're living through, and kind of how Vietnam led to a lot of a certain type of horror movie, how, you know, like the, you know, the politics in the 80s led to a lot of certain types of horror movies because of, like, you know, everything was going through with Reagan and things like that. And then how, you know, like after 9/11 and, like, you know, like going to the Middle East again, how there was a lot of like home invasion stuff, and a lot of stuff have been unsettled by, like, you know, outsiders and foreigners and things like that. And sometimes you know, it comes across almost exploitive in that sense, and sometimes it's like it's trying to make a sort of strong moral point. And I think it's interesting what it says about our society now, that horror movies are now shifting to tackle things like domestic abuse, and things that are like, hey, these have existed this entire time. Like, you go all the way back to like when Night of the Living Dead was made. There was domestic abuse in 1968. I'm willing to, you know, bet you know there's always been there. But we're a society now who's trying to shed lights on these things, and our movies are trying to do the same. And for some reason, to a certain types of people, that infuriates them, because it's like, nah, horror movies and movies should not be political and fun. Art has always been political. You're just an idiot who's never noticed, and it's just getting, you know, really specific.
And also, you're just mad because it's not lining up with your politics. Like, no one gets angry when it's a message they agree on.
Exactly, yeah. It's like movies are too political. Yeah, they're only too political when it's the opposing political side.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I think, you know, we're also really lucky where,
the people we have doing these movies are insanely talented. Like,
Oh yeah.
Actually, one thing I'd be interested to see if you have any thoughts on this now, but I don't know. I think I might be a little more excited about like Whannell's movies versus Juan's because they kind of came up together. They were like writing partners for a while, and I'm sure they're like friends and everything. But
I think that's a really interesting progression to Whannell's career at this point, where he directed Insidious 3, and that was like, okay, so he helped write Insidious with Juan. Juan did the first two, and because Juan was busy doing other things, like Whannell kind of got his chance to like, hey, you can direct this sequel that is kind of not important, right? It's like the third movie in a franchise. It may be okay, but no one's going to care about it really. And it ended up in a fun little sequel, and like we were like, hey, he's actually not bad at this directing gig. And then he went and did Upgrade, which wasn't a horror movie, but it was like a really fun sci-fi kind of action movie that I think had its problems, but the directing in it was very inventive, and it felt like he was experimenting as a director. Where okay, he did this sort of standard horror sequel, which was solid, and then he got experimental, and it feels like with Invisible Man, he's kind of merged that together, where he's gone back to horror, he's taken some of that experimental filmmaking, and he's got maybe his most interesting story so far in his own directed movies. And I feel like, I'm excited about where he goes next. And James Wan, like, because he's doing like Aquaman sequels and shit, like, I'm less excited. I mean, I'm looking forward to his horror movie, don't get me wrong. His movie that he's doing now, his Giallo, like, I'm sure it'll be fun, and I'm looking forward to that. But I mean, Whannell arguably might be just as interesting to follow at this point, if not more so, and I'm excited about that. And I think one of the things that came up in, what movie was it recently? Birds of Prey, right? And I didn't like Birds of Prey. It wasn't my sense of humor. I had a lot of problems with that movie. But one of the things that the those people will say were complaining about it being too feminist and whatever, right? Which is bullshit. But they complain.
I thought you were talking about like Matt and Connor.
Oh no, Matt and Connor, no. No. The people who complain movies are too political is what I was going for. Like they were complaining that all the men in the movie are idiots, or they're all villains. There's no good men characters, and I'm like, so what? Big deal. Like there's tons of movies where the men are the only heroes in the film. There's thousands of movies where men are the heroes. Who gives a shit if they're all idiots in one movie? Do you know how many movies there are where there's only like one woman character and she's awful, or how many movies there are where there's only one black character and they're killed first, or whatever, right? But this movie does this movie, and it doesn't need it, right? But I think it is worth mentioning here to like sort of curb those complaints that this movie does have James, who is kind of a stand-up guy, who is kind of like, hey, like, here's an example of a fine man who is there for her, who's not even a romantic interest. He's just a good dude who cares about. I
was just gonna mention that. I like that it wasn't like a romantic thing.
Yeah. I like that he's a guy who's a good dad who cares about his daughter. He cares about this friend who he barely even knows, because he knows her through her sister. He's friends with the sister, is what we understand. But he is an example of a good person who isn't like any of these stereotypes, who is just a good guy, and it's believable when he doesn't believe things, and it kind of shows how gaslighting actually makes reasonable people kind of doubt the person that's being gaslighted. But like, so you have this example there of that, and it's kind of it's a good moment, and I think it's a big deal at the end when he kind of like sides where he's like, you know what, it sounded like he killed himself, like he's willing to sort of go with that. So no, it's good stuff, and he feels guilty later on, perhaps because he didn't believe her, and it's one of those things where it sounds so hard to believe, and it's not a perfect metaphor for believing someone like an abuse victim when they say they're being abused, because obviously believing that someone is invisible and running around doing things invisible is obviously quite far-fetched, but it works in the context of the movie to be like, okay, that's people don't always believe people right away when they say they're being abused, but so you've got that element to it as well. So really good stuff.
And just a few things. I think there was I don't know if you read it, but I think there was a news story, maybe just recently, like might have even been like today or like yesterday or something. But I think Whannell did sign some exclusive deal with Blumhouse or something.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously did Insidious with them and Upgrade with them, so he's kind of already there anyway. But so it kind of sounds like they wanted to lock him down because this movie's getting even more buzz and it's maybe doing quite well. And it's not a surprise, I think, that it's like, I think it was like literally Friday, so it was maybe when the estimates came in for Friday, where they said, okay, let's lock him down. Let's lock him down for a few years to do just Blumhouse projects.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm really excited to see what else he's going to do, and hopefully
Yeah, I'd definitely like to see more horror stuff from him. I mean, it seems like that's what he's interested in anyway. But I'll be excited.
Let it be known, because I feel bad sometimes, because I feel like sometimes we get a string of like a lot of movies that are quite bad, and we just sit here and we tell you why they're bad. And I'm like, I almost imagine some people, if they just happen to watch like all the wrong episodes, will think that we're never happy or we're never positive. Sure. And I'm happy that, you know, between this and, you know, it's not been that long since we did like, you know, Depraved was pretty solid, and you know, we obviously did The Lighthouse, but like, I'm happy that we got another good modern horror movie, because it's been you know, I've had some rough ones.
Although this did make me a little nervous. I'm like, like, like what other good horror do we have to look out for the year? I mean, we just talked about the Candyman trailer, which I'm really excited about that, but like,
well, we have Quiet Place 2, which might be good.
That's true. Yeah.
We have I don't know if you've been getting the trailer for Antebellum, but that looks kind of interesting.
I don't think I saw that yet. No.
It looks interesting. I've had the trailer a couple of times in the theaters, but that looks potentially good. You know,
I guess it's hard to tell, because like we've, you know, like we've been doing news stories about stuff that's like exciting, like, you know, the new James Wan movie, or the new Sam Raimi movie, or the new Edgar Wright movie, but I don't know if those are this year, or if you know, those will be like next year and whatnot. And I guess there's also always exciting like VOD stuff that can kind of
because I'm actually looking forward to seeing Underwater when it hits VOD. Like,
oh, that's true.
I'm looking forward to checking that one out. I mean, New Mutants will be interesting. I don't know if it'll be good, but
right.
It'll be interesting. And just looking ahead, I mean, Spiral's curious. I mean, who knows what Spiral's going to end up being like?
Is Halloween Kills this year?
Yeah, that's October.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Saint Maud's getting buzz.
I'm interested in that.
We're going to watch Gretel and Hansel at one point, you know, when that's into his VOD, so that this might be good. So I mean, it does things.
Green Knight too, yeah, that
Green Knight looks good. Okay. The Lodge, which has had a limited release, again, that'll be a VOD one for us, but that's getting some buzz. So, but, you know,
I'll save my thoughts on that one. I've seen it already, but
yes, but I mean, that made it sound like you don't like it, so I'm curious now. But
we'll see.
We'll see. Okay, we'll see. I'm curious. So there's stuff coming. There's a lot coming out this year, actually.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I mean, I think, man, I'd be really surprised though if this isn't my number one of the year, though. I really like this movie. That was really good.
It's February, Tim. Calm down. You know, we haven't even done our top 10 of 2019 yet.
That's true.
Calm down. Maybe we'll get a nice surprise later in the year. But I mean, yeah, this is an early contender for that top 10 when we get to that next March. So good stuff.
Yeah.
So let it be known, we actually do like movies occasionally. But yeah, that is The Invisible Man. So
you want to rate it?
Yeah, we should rate it. What are you giving it, Tibby?
I think I'm gonna give it a 9, which I feel like is, even when we like movies, I feel like it's still pretty rare for like a new movie that just came out. But again, I don't think there's really there's a few minor quibbles here and there, but I don't think there's really that much wrong with this movie. I had such a fun time watching it. I thought just really everything about it like stood out. Like, it looked great, it sounded great, the performances were great, the story really had its hooks in me. Like, I was surprised at parts. Yeah, and this you know, I'm pretty lazy now, so I don't know if I'll get back to out to the theater to see it, but this is definitely something I'm looking forward to watching again at some point.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was watching it, like, there were certain moments, like I was saying, how like it just changed things up just at the right time repeatedly. When I almost thought like a section was maybe going on a bit too long, or like I thought it might start feeling that way, it changed things up and it kept going. If I have quibbles, you know, it's that maybe some of the mystery did kind of leave the movie when we find out it's just like a suit that's like, and we see what the suit looks like. You know, that kind of took a little bit out of it, a touch, and maybe like, I almost wish that like maybe James like believed it was happening earlier so that we could get like sort of like people working together to trap him, kind of thing. But of course I get why we didn't do that, because the ending where she kind of does it herself and like sort of has this like, you know, revenge is really satisfying. So I get it. I get why we didn't do that. But part of me wanted the It Follows thing of like everyone believing her so that they could all work together to try and like, you know, stop him with some sort of plan. But you know, minor quibbles, because the movie is full of effective scenes. The cast is pretty great from top to bottom. I should mention the Invisible Man himself, Adrian, is the younger brother from Haunting a Hill House, if you recognized him.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's him.
That's cool.
So that was cool. I don't know if I want to go straight to... I'm going to say 8.5. I'm going to say 8.5. I don't think I'm ready to like commit to the 9 yet, but on a rewatch, I think it might scrape that, but
Yeah.
I'm going to say 8.5. But clearly, we're very positive on Invisible Man, and very much worth your time going and checking it out. Our first big recommendation of 2020 for the new movies. So go and check it out. So loves it. Yeah. So there you go. That's been Screams After Midnight. You can, of course, let us know what you think of The Invisible Man in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at Screams Midnight. And you can, of course, support the show by going to Apple Podcasts and rating the podcast 5 stars. Give us a little review. More people find us that way. It'll get us higher in the rankings. Check out the content that we have on Mailfuzz TV, sci-fi movie podcast, The Atomic Cinema Experiment. Check out the TV reviews, all that other stuff. But that is us, so thank you once again for watching or listening, and we always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we'll see you next time.